Hello, everybody. I think that we are technically and officially on. And it is incredible how it has been since we started living in this Zoom. So these technical preparations are much shorter than they used to be. I'm welcoming you all from Sarajevo Film Festival that this year is actually happening also online, but also on site. And as you can see, one of our guests at least is there. But we are not sharing the room. We are doing it a proper Zoom talk. I'm welcoming you to another session of our CineLink Industry Talks that we are doing in collaboration with Screen International. And our subject today is what do women want? And I have to say that I'm pretty happy that because I'm moderating this talk and my first list of people that I wanted to talk about, everybody said yes. So I'm really happy that I have this, power group of women sitting with me, and I'm really sorry that we are not together at the table, because I think that would be a blast, but a real blast. But we can, I think, bring a bit of blast online, and I think that we can be as open as we would be just talking in person to each other. I will make a very brief introduction because I would like us actually to talk, not me giving a lecture and then you commenting on my lecture. But I wanted to say, because this subject comes from a very personal point for me, as somebody who has been producing for 20 years and as somebody who has been running a industry section of Sarajevo Film Festival CineLink for the same amount of years almost. I realized that at one particular moment in 2000, I would say 18, after everything started, 2016, people started talking much more about the position of women in the film industry. There were, especially in Europe and also in the United States, there were different conferences. Aida was part of one in Sarajevo. If you remember, Aida, one of that was the Bosnian Convention of position in women in film industry was signed. There were different initiatives at different festivals, different funds. Swedish Film Institute started with 50-50-2020. I think Antoneta is hiding her pin that says 50-50-2020, but it's there.
Not hiding.
No, but you just, we cannot see it. And I was always considering myself, yes, I'm representing, I am a female filmmaker and I'm a producer and this represents me. And then I was invited to a conference in Zagreb, where organized by Croatian Association of Directors, and there were some of us at the table, and different generation of producers. There were directors table, producers table, and actors table. And I was, of course, at the producers table. We're talking. And at a certain point, I started explaining how did I started in industry. And explaining that for me, becoming a producer and becoming especially producer on the set meant that I'm hiding my femininity. And that for me, being a member of the crew was more important than keeping my, that is the way that I fought my fight. As a reply, much younger, Croatian producer told me something that I'm still struggling about. And she told me, Amra, your feminism is very old. So I realized that I'm an old feminist. And I went in a really deep research of the reasons for my old feminism. And I discovered that there are so many reluctancies in us to define ourselves as, feminist filmmakers, what that means, how that defines the things that we are producing, that we are directing. So this is an ongoing subject for me. And then in this research, as an old feminist, I kind of stumbled upon, let's say, on a quote of Anja Svarda. And as I told you in the short prep that we had, she's really like a quote machine. So if you ever need a quote, she has it. Like it works. So she says the first feminist gesture is to say, okay, they are looking at me, but I'm looking at them. And for me, that was kind of revealing that, that it took me years to understand that my old feminism was also taking a feminist position. But it took me years to kind of define and to find, and I'm not really yet sure where, connection starts and where it ends in between me as a, female producer or me as a professional. And this goes to all of you, how do you consider yourself? And I'm not talking publicly, not talking about them looking at you, but about you looking at them. And I will start with Agustina. Why? Because we are all in a way representing East Europe and Europe. And Agustina is coming from completely another part of the world, from Uruguay. But I think that we share, the position is not so, it's not so different. But I would like you to start with you. Can you tell us a bit about how do you, consider yourself thinking as a feminist filmmaker, female filmmaker, producer, and what did it change in years?
Okay. Hi, how are you? Here from Latin America, the other part of the world. But we have a lot of strong connections with Europe, so I keep going back and forward. And I already produced films within Latin American countries and within Europe. So, well, I'm also an old feminist, of the old generation. I think I am like more in the middle generation. I'm 44 years old, so I'm like in the generation where I was raised like, we are three sisters, and I was raised like more like women should do this and you should sit this way and all the things you don't want to tell your daughters, but that sometimes come back to your head, when you are like sitting here and crossing your legs and this kind of old-fashioned things. But at the same time, I think me, myself, and my family and my generation had this kind of education where women studied, women and strong women had a career, this kind of in the middle generation. So when Amra was asking about our process, I think I am like the kind of feminist that it's more like in my daily life than an activist. I'm not like the activist of going to meetings and going, this kind of way, but more like in my daily life and in the things I do. I consider myself a feminist on that in that sense, no? So and when I started my career, I remember one of the films when I came back to live to Uruguay. I used to live in Mexico and in Spain. And when I came back, my first job was in a film that it was supposed to be in the shooting only guys, only men. And so I was like in the office, it was a very like toxic machism film, the subject. And so, but I love the film, but I mean, we need to talk about everything, but it was a very like toxic, and it reflected that. So I was on the office, but what happened was that the guy that was in charge of the shooting, I was like a director of production director, the guy that was there quitted. So the day before the shooting started. So I was the one like, okay, so you go. And I was like, me with all these guys around me. Okay, I will go, but I will take two women with me. So I made my team with me and two women. And all the fear, the thing was that the director, that obviously was a man, he had all like the fears of that if he brought women into set, this feeling and this atmosphere he wanted to get to wouldn't work. And of course it was the other way around, because these guys needed women in order to be the machos of the, so it was like, it was proven that it was the other way around. But with this in mind, now I'm doing the opposite thing. That is now a first feature film of a woman of 50 years old. It's her first feature. And so the first thing she asked me was like, I am on the 50-50. We need to have this female here, this female here. And I said, okay, let's forget about that. Let's just make our ideal team. And you know that it will be 50-50 for sure, or 60-40 maybe. So in this is what I say, that I'm not that activist, that I need to be like by the rules and like politically correct, we need 50-50 or whatever. I do it like naturally. It always happens to me, because also thinking about now, like the shift in my career was like, I did a lot of films. I produced a lot of films with more men in directing, and now I'm like shifting, and I'm thinking that I have all women. I think now I'm like producing like 10 things, and I think they are all women director, all like 80%, you know. But it's not something I chose. It's just something. Well, I chose it, but I mean, it just, you know,
it's
naturally.
not something that you consciously choose.
Yes,
Yeah.
It was something like, now these kind of themes are the ones that I'm needing. This kind of sensitivity is the one I'm looking for. This kind of stories taken from other point of view is the ones I think the world needs to see. So it's like a natural thing that is happening, at least for me. And it's also, I don't know, maybe then we can discuss on the new generations and everything, because now I had like this last shooting that was 1 month ago, and I had these crashes with the new generation. But maybe this we can talk later.
No, but I think you came to the very interesting position, because me and Aida are going the long way. You know, we started many years, and basically I think that she is the first one calling me producer, and she's the one, when she was doing her first short, she came to me and asked me to be her producer. And that was the first time that somebody told me that the job that I was actually doing was producing. So, you know, she holds, you know, there is a very special place of that film and of that, you know, of this relationship in my career, and I suppose in Aida's career as well. But, you know, Aida, for you, first question, and then you continue also answering the question for everybody. You know, I don't think that we were aware that it was a woman filmmaker approaching a female producer. I think it was more, as Agustina saying, something very natural, not conscious. And it's strange, but today when I'm observing it, it was very feminist in a way. But we never talked about it. So, you know, somehow Agustina connected me with that question.
Well, you said that we will talk
Yes.
about personal things and our feelings. So I have to go a little bit back before we met. So I was very young. I was 17 when I started academy to be a student. And I always knew that I'm female student of directing, not because of my awareness or consciousness about it, but because of how men treated me, you know, and I always felt like they don't take me seriously enough. So I was in situations when they were patronizing me, telling me what to do, or telling me like, if you fail as a director, you can always be a model, and things like that. So I was very aware, you know, that my position is not easy position, you know, in that sense. So when I started to search for like crew and production for my diploma film, basically, I went to a few productions that were held by men who were really like very Balkan macho style. And those times the Balkans were not really comfortable for women, because we didn't have many or almost none women directors, producers, and so on. And they started to tell me how I'm going to do it. You should hire this guy. Blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want, you know, to go that way. It was maybe easier, but it wasn't my cup of tea, because I felt really endangered as a woman, as a young woman. I didn't feel comfortable. And when I met you, actually, it really was a turning point in my career, because I felt now I'm in a safe place. You know, now I can really talk with someone who is not treating me as somebody who is, you know, not serious enough, who is just playing films, you know. And as you say, I mean, it wasn't like there is a woman, but it was a feeling, you know, it was something that I felt when I entered pro.ba, and when I met you, that there is someone that I can really communicate with. And I must say that before this short film, you gave me this very well-paid job, because you were searching for a woman director also, as if you remember, for this documentary.
Yes.
So, you know, it was like a win-win. But I know that from then on, you know, I felt, okay, now I can really build my career the way I want. And I'm not sure, I mean, at least I tried, and I met many other men producers and production companies. I didn't find an environment that is offering me such a place, you know, and I'm sure that I would never make things the way I did if you wasn't my first producer. And I'm that it has something to do with the fact that you are a woman. Maybe now we have new generations of men producers who are different, but if we talk about times when we started, it was really big difference between those men producers and you, who were first and only at that moment.
But it is true that you know, I think that it was different, and as Agustina was saying, she was also working in this kind of very toxic masculine you know, surroundings. But for you too, Bianca and Antoneta, you are younger. You know, I'm the oldest one, and then but you are younger. And I remember when I met you, Bianca, in, I think it was Jihlava, probably 10 years ago, 12. And, you know, I was not yet as old as I am now, but I was feeling that there is another generation, you know, there is just another generation behind me. And I always felt that when I met you, and I think that we share a ride in the car or something, if I remember correctly. So I think that I remember really kind of strongly that I felt, you know, how different the next generation is of female producers, how strong you are in your female position. Was it only me projecting that, or were you aware of that when you were coming on? And maybe that is also because we existed before, but I don't know. So how was it for you?
Yeah, it was, I think it was 2015, if I'm not mistaken. I was on Emerging Producers, I think.
Yes, in Jihlava, yes.
Yeah, I have to say, so I started being a producer because I was a screenwriter, actually. Can you still hear me?
Yes, no. Yes, it's fine. But you cannot hear us. Huh?
My bad internet.
We are losing you. Shall we try again? We can try maybe with Antoinette and then come back to Bianca. Yeah. You can maybe go out and come back.
Yeah,
but now it's okay.
Hear you. Yeah, now it's fine. So it's on and off, fluctuating. Okay, I'll be super fast.
Super fast.
Yeah, so I was studying screenwriting. So I was trained in film school to become a screenwriter, but then our teachers would not allow us to do the screenplays that I was writing because they thought that they were too complicated to make in a film school. So I was trying to defend myself probably and say, no, these scripts can be made into films, and I will prove you that they can be made into films. So that's how I started, actually, by taking over this job of finding financing outside of the school so that we could make our shorts. And I'm not saying that I was very good at it, but it was just something in the way of I don't know, in the relationship with my colleagues, with the directors who were at the time a man and a woman, Ivana Mladenović. She was we were in the same year, so we started doing films together. And it was actually because of her that she wanted to continue working outside of film school with me that we ended up working together on Turn Off the Lights, which was her first feature documentary. And we did go to an exclusively male-owned production company, and we did have a lot of trouble doing the film. Partly because of their masculine bias, but what my experience is that when you're more than one, you're a crowd, you know. So the more we can allow women to be present, the more the balance is the more balance we will have. So the fact that we were forming this duo, me and Ivana, and she also had her editor, was a young editor at that time. So we were all in film school together, and we were dealing with producers who had already done films, and with the whole structure of Romanian film industry at the time. This was 2010. It kind of helped me to understand that whatever I'm thinking and whatever I want to do can be done if you find like-minded people. And these like-minded people, luckily, can also be men, a particular type of men, like Aida said, that now there are other types of male producers emerging. And I'm sure that there were also in the older times, there were feminist men producers who have had a respect towards giving voice to other filmmakers. So just, I don't know, I think I've never felt or thought in a binary way, you know, thinking that the world is divided between men and women, and that I have to make my way as a woman inside this male-dominated world. I just felt that I need to make my way and to have some women by my side. So that's all I know, and that's all I can tell you.
You know, I think that is brilliantly bringing us to Antoneta, you know, because I know her also, you know, I had now, when I'm talking about all of you, I have a feeling that I lived for 150 years, but I know Antoneta also since she started. She came to Sarajevo to Talent Campus years and years ago. And she was actually then trying to become a producer, but at the very end, she decided to be a director. But that is not what I meant. I was thinking when I met you at that time, I had a feeling already from the beginning that there is this, even the belonging to completely different generations, that there is some kind of a, you know, sisterhood there. And, you know, I was not yet able to explain it to myself, but I had a feeling, you know, this is a female voice. And I know that, you know, especially in Balkans, in the countries like Balkans, you know, like East Europe, some of the countries of East Europe, being a feminist can be something pejorative or can be something negative. But, you know, of course, I'm not talking from that point, but I always felt with you, there was always that somewhere very, you know, apparent. So was that conscious for you, or also something that kind of many other people have felt, like with Bianca or Aida, and you didn't? It was just something that is there, simply there.
Yes, I remember that time. It was long ago.
Long ago, yes.
Well, I come from a family where women are extremely strong. They are leaders and very, both in business and arts. So for me, I never felt the need to call myself a feminist or to feel that I need to fight for my place in the world. That was just very natural, you know, that's how I'm raised. So I used to say back then that I'm not a feminist because of the world we are in, that you are placed in a certain like group of angry and mad, you know. And then of course, I moved to United States and I got educated there. And up to 2017, I think I was saying, no, I never had a problem being a woman in the industry. I don't know how these things happen to these women, never happened to me. I'm very, I feel exactly equal. And then I started making my first feature in 2017. And I realized that I lived in complete shadow and denial, like real denial. Every time I said that something never happened to me, it happened between 2017 and 2021. And it's incredible, you know, because I was raised one way, I lived for 10 years one way, And then I'm faced with a completely third, a new way, the wrong way. And the moment when it got really clear to me was actually in May. You wouldn't believe. In May, I went to Mexico to shoot a little project with Jalicia Aparicio. And I was almost 7 months pregnant. And I decided to hire the team of only women on set. So gaffer, electricians, cinematographers, assistants, producers, there was not one single man on set, only women. And the reason I did it, it's because it was a part of my art project, not for any quotas, not for any movement. It was just the concept of the project behind and in front of the camera. It was an experiment. It was a beautiful day of shoot in Mexico City during COVID. My cinematographer was 7 to 8 months, going to 8 months pregnancy. There was gaffers and electricians with talking to their children on a microphone. One had 6 kids, one had 3. It was incredible. And I realized something else after that day ended. I went to the parking. There were husbands of these women waiting for them with their kids in a car. Everybody drove away. I came home to my husband and I was like, I felt incredible lightness working today, because not once I was putting my energy anywhere else except at what I was doing. There was not one moment where my attention was to prove myself, to show I can do it, where my creativity was split, never. And that was a fourth level of revelation to me, how much in denial I was. Because even when I'm in charge on my film, very well produced with a great team, a lot of people, good budget, I'm still losing my energy in the places where I don't want to lose them. Because I am a woman and I am in a very chauvinist mood. It's not even the quotas, the rules, the specific actions. It's just the mood, it's the energy. And yes, so there's a lot of work to do.
You know, there is a question from the people who are listening, but it's also the question that connects to something that I kind of wanted us to talk about, and you mentioned it, and it's question of quotas and numbers, because the question is what can women bring to the table that men can't, or should there be a quota system like one on BAME, which is the Black Asian, and it's an abbreviation, so it's about non-white ethnic in UK. And for me, it's quotas are something that I'm really struggling about. It's something that every single time that I'm faced with the question of quota, I become angry. And this is we all somehow I also started thinking I'm not really a feminist, because I don't think that I moved much further away than my mother. She also was a professional living her, but that's also something that comes from the society, and society puts you in that position. And I'm much stronger the feminist than I ever was now getting older. But also I think that I'm changing my approach to quotas. And this is something that I want to talk to you about. Because after 20 years in the industry, yes, a lot has changed, but not everything has changed. And it's the question, is it going to change? Still, there are much less films that are directed by women. Still, it's 50-50. 50% of women are finishing film school, so a little bit less than 50, but most of them are never going to make their first feature. So this is the reality. This is the reality all around the world, not just and this is how it is to be a female filmmaker. But I read after being called an old feminist, And after went into the personal investigation of what it means, I read something that Gina Davis did in her institute in States, and she was calculating the number of extras and how many of them are men and how many of them are women in in American films. And nevertheless, that the society is 51% women and 49% men. The extras in a society, the extras in American films is 70% men and 30% women, or something like that. And then I'm asking myself, do we need, then I'm considering maybe I need a quota. Maybe I really need to, as a producer, to take the list of the, of extras that we are going to, crowds, people just walking behind directors. I'm not talking about the story. I'm not yet at all talking the subject that you choose as producers and then directors, and all of you have very specific films in mind, and I don't know what kind of filmmakers you are, but I'm talking on this very plain level. Can the film show the equality if even the percentages of sexes, of course, races and everything else are not the correct one? And can that be something that we impose to each other when working on a film? How would you feel? Do you feel, kind of that is something that is imposing and that you are pushed to do? Or you would feel, okay, if I would be counting extras for your film and saying, I really want 50% women. This goes both for you producer, for two of you producers, for two of the directors. Yes, Antoneta.
Quotas are working both for us and against us, in a way, because we all know what it means coming from communist countries. What does it mean to be imposed to do certain things certain way? But also I think that we are in such a disbalance that believing that the world will naturally change by being aware more it's taking too much time. It's obviously not happening. So what I think, and I was thinking a lot about quotas. Quotas, especially what was Oscar's doing, is naturally asking for backwards engineering for the companies that are going to say, oh, I need one lesbian woman, 2 Black women here, and 5 there, and then I'm going to make still the film I want to make, directed by man, with those quotas, but I'm done. I think those quotas don't work. Where I think quotas are absolutely necessary are in financing. We still in 2019, 84% of the public money in Europe was assigned to men. So I don't understand how is that possible after 2016, 17, 18, we are in 19. All the things that we did and that we went public, we screamed, we went on red carpet here in Sarajevo, back in Cannes. How is it possible? Then 2019, 84% of the financing goes to men. So it's not about where we need to be awarded, where we need to be invited to the festivals where we need quotas. No, we need the quotas at the get-go. We need quotas in financing. We need to be equally financed, not equal amount of women financed and men financed. No, the value of the money needs to be equal. And that's, I think, where quotas are necessary. Maybe they're not going to be necessary forever. Quotas maybe should be lifted at one point, but at least until there's equality, we do need quotas. And then another thing where festivals do need quotas is juries and selection, because we don't need to be called out. For example, just out of my experience from Cannes right now, it's very strange to read in reviews like, oh yeah, she was awarded because it was such a good moment from her, because she's a woman and her film is about a woman and was filmed by a woman. Or Chloe Zhao coming out of Oscars and Venice. Oh yeah, she's the first Asian woman who won it. Of course, she's a woman and she won it because now we are in the moment of women winning. Like, that's very frustrating. And that's what we don't want from the quotas. What I think that we do want from quotas is where there's man bias, because there's so many men on boards of public boards, Oscars, governments, festivals, selections. We need equal amount of women there. Then if the equal amount of films are produced by women, directed by women, and the equal amount of women are selecting them, then we don't need quotas of how many women films need to be selected at the festival. It's going to happen naturally.
You know, but there is a one problem there. But first, Agustina wanted to say there. I think there is a problem.
No, but that, for me, it's like a transition. You know, it's a moment where we need like a push, but I'm not very, I don't like quotas because of that, because we are like trending and now it's fashion to be a woman, and now it's so stupid. I think that's so stupid, because it's like, come on. What is now happening for me is like, we are bored of what we've been told in all the back generations. We need new voices, and that is a must. I mean, the world is changing, we are changing, we need other people to tell us stories. And I think that is the thing, not the, like, you know, not like we are imposed to have these quotas. But on the other hand, I think that we need a push in order to get there, because we are really down, you know, in the numbers. I read for the Forum of San Sebastian, you know, the festival. So I read for the projects for the selection. And I've noticed for the last years that it's been increasing the amount of female directors that were like there. You must have the same thing in Sarajevo, of course.
Yes, of course.
And now we have like almost 35-40% of women applying. So, and to get to the 50-50 is really natural, because in 40-60, you can get there easily. You don't need to impose anything. So I think these kind of things are the ones that, like the education, like the people that are coming, as you say, Antoneta, like the people that are reading and selecting and giving the financing, all of these are the ones that are deciding who is getting there. So you need people applying, but you also need the people that decide to get into that phase, you know?
Yeah, but there is also one thing that I'm concerned about, because I think that quotas has two sides. One is this political side, and we need it, definitely. So it's like political aspect of how to fight to get financing, visibility, and so on. And I think it's fine until we come to the point when we will not need it. But the other thing is how it reflects on filmmakers. Do we enter in one moment to this area where we as women directors are writing or trying to do certain projects that are going to answer to those expectations regarding certain content, the characters, blah, blah, blah. And I feel trapped in that sense as a filmmaker, as an author, because what I feel is that it started to mix the politics and creative aspect of that. And it should be divided, because as a creative people, as a filmmakers, as authors, we should be free from quotas. And we should create content that we really feel is important, and we shouldn't be dictated on how we're going to make it, not only with a percentage of collaborators, but also with the content. And I think that that's maybe because, at least in art house cinema, we lost this contact with audience. So what's going on is that everything is circling around between the same people who are most of the time trying to be very politically correct, which doesn't help to art most of the time, because we are dealing with human imperfection, with the dramas and so on. And we are trying to solve in political level the content of films. And I think that's where we need some kind of fresh air, and we need to cut something as an authors. I think with all this other aspect of industry, they started to trap us. At least I feel trapped recently, at least last 5 years.
Bianca, I think that you also wanted to say something.
Yeah, because I remember you mentioned the Zagreb conference, and I was there with you.
I remember.
And I had a sort of a radical position on quotas, not as radical and aimed as the Croatian producer, but for me to put quotas on a minority group, because that's how, if we look at it from a political point of view,
exactly.
Women are now being treated as minorities. The more you segregate the minorities from the majority, the more you create a gap of perception between the majority, who will, part of it would feel threatened, because it's like saying, okay, we take from the pool of money, let's say, that you men have been used to. You no longer have the right to get this pool of money, because we will take from it and we will give it to the women. So what does this create? You know, it's like children with toys. You take the toy from another kid and you say, this kid needs it more. Why don't we create more toys? You know, I mean, why don't we go back a little bit before financing, and we think of film schools, we think of education and women's access to education. The fact that women should know that they can apply, or they can consider themselves filmmakers, or they can go to be trained as gaffers and stuff. This is policy, of course. Who makes the policy? There we can try to think, can we imagine doing quotas? But again, when you impose when you impose segregation, then you will get segregation. I mean, there will not be fluidity in the process.
Antoneta?
Bianca, I agree with you on, yes, there should be no segregation. Yet, when talking about film schools, more than 50% of women are in film school. I went to 2 film schools where women were, yes. Now, where women are majority. So I went to Academy in Zagreb, very prestigious for Croatia. I went to Columbia University in New York, where majority were women. And I think that a problem does not happen on a level of education. That's a problem of 40 years ago. I think in 2020, the problem is on the level of a production, which is still shocking, because more women come out of film schools than men, and less women get financed than men. So, and the answer that I get, which is really crazy, is that, yeah, well, but you know, women have a family and then they have kids and then the time goes away. And I'm like, I just worked with a woman who has 5 kids and shot 125 films, Hélène Louvard. So it's obviously possible. It's the society that needs to create the space for that. And it's the financing that needs to change. I really don't think that the problem is awareness or a level of a film school and education. But back to what Aida was saying about how we as an artist, and I consider myself, director and writer. I am. There's again this problem. Oh, I need to say yes. I'm a director and a writer. I don't think that to true director and writer, quotas are going to change what you're saying and how you're saying. It's impossible. No quota can change what I'm going to make, because I'm making it from a place where I absolutely need to make it.
But there is a danger. There is what Aida was saying.
No. There is absolute danger. Absolute. She's so right. But those people are the people who are always going to enter the system. They're always passers-by in any politics, in any industry. So the question is, for true artists, they're always going to make what they need to make. Quotas are just going to make those who are just going to make quotas anyway. If it's not a quotas of amount of women or men, they're going to think, oh, this year we have an ecological problem. I absolutely need to make a film about ecology, or I need to make a film about, I don't know, whatever it is, little worms coming to the house. I don't know, whatever that the thing is, they're going to make film about that because that's a character. That's not a quota. So quotas are going to increase that, but that's going to exist anyway, in my opinion.
But I think with discussing quotas and discussing what also Bianca was saying, is also something that, you know, it's basically with female movement from the beginning. It's, you know, right for equal pay. You know, things are very simple, and nevertheless, how things got very advanced, and we sound very advanced. Our main, you know, we are treated as minority, which is ridiculous.
My account is not advanced.
So, and it sounds like, you know, yeah, 100 years later, you know, women can vote in Bosnia since 1945. So it didn't happen yesterday. You know, my grandmother and Aida's grandmother could vote in 1945. So it is very complex, you know, the feeling that you have, how far the society went. And then when you are analyzing the politics, and when you are analyzing the moves that we are making, you are back to the beginning, and we are back to the one basic, you know, also almost majorette kind of question, you know, do we have a right of equal pay? And, you know, also I think that what is beautiful and what doesn't work, we all first talk about our emotions and our personal positions in the industry, and only later we came to rights, to money, and, you know, and this is where we are losing time. This is exactly these 7 years that they are considering that you haven't been that you invested in kids or in your family or whatever. No, this is how, you know, the femininity works, you know, and I think there is we shouldn't lose that. And in the sense what Aida was saying, I think that is right. I'm sorry, just there is another question from audience. Jovana asks, do you think there is at least a little part of better position for women in the film industry, or will it ever be? So, you know, because we have, we are discussing it, but do you feel that things have moved? I think, Antoneta, you talked about it, but I think, you know, we all kind of mentioned, but how do you feel, bottom line? Are things better than they were like 10, 15, 20 years ago when you started, depending, you know, when actually did you start it, and how, you know, how long is your experience?
I can definitely say that it's better than when I started, because, for instance, I was talking about Ivana. Ivana wanted to study film to become a director, but in Belgrade, there was widely known that there is only 1 seat out of the 5 seats meant for women. So that's why she had to move to another country. So she came to Bucharest so she can get to film school. You know, she had a female teacher, and the teacher was even harsher with women than with men. So we haven't even begun to talk about the female bias.
The female bias is the last subject that I wanted to, you know, that's also something very important.
Absolutely. I mean, if quotas will stand, which I don't think they will, but if they would stand and you put women who are just as misogynist or, let's say, narrow-minded as their male counterparts, what I'm trying to say is that it's about the attitude and our education towards how we improve, towards progress. What do we want progress to be? And that doesn't happen unless you have a proper policy of educating people who want to become filmmakers about what filmmaking is. And it goes beyond film school. It's true. It's a matter of ethics, let's say.
For me,
yeah, but it's also, sorry, it's also part of a process. So yes, we need, now that you said, Antoneta, that there are a lot of women in schools, yes, it's true, but it was not some years ago. No. So I think it's part of this process that it's not that you have quotas and now all the women are there. No, it's impossible. It's part of something that we have to it's a mental change also, I think. So it's important that we are more than a lot of women in film schools in order to go, or in the industry. I mean, it's not only the school, it's just the people that work there.
Basically what both of you are saying, yes, it starts from school, but we need to push it each section by section further till distribution incentives.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Not losing the real right to say what we think. Because the biggest
exactly.
is it's I will use the word which is almost like it can be almost like whitewashing, but not in this case will not be white. It will be kind of if I have to make films that are representing a certain position, then I'm sure that we will not succeed, because we shouldn't represent the position that is imposed. We should represent as artists, as filmmakers, as we should represent what we feel. And I've changed my mind so many times in my career about things. And I want the right to, for my films also to reflect that.
I think
yeah, please, Aida, sorry.
Yeah, I think the situation really changed. I mean, since the moment when we started, as we talked earlier, until now, it really changed. And if you look, for example, in American cinema, which is maybe the most vivid and most vital and most and widest cinema in the world, it would be impossible to imagine to have certain like indie films directed by women with let's say small films nominated for Oscars or being in the short listed for Oscars and so on. So I think it's really good news, because it's some kind of beginning of maybe a new era of cinema. And I think that women, because there was this question, what women can bring. And I think what women can bring is like this different point of view, which is more feminine, or if they don't want, they can make war films with only men and so on, but they will bring some other sensibility. Because I know when what we changed here in Bosnia was this way of doing films in sense of approach, in sense of atmosphere on the film set. And it became standard because, after women started to work more, we killed this, as I call, like a Yugoslavian cinema approach with these Balkan macho guys with beards and so on. We changed the sensibility and approach to the crew, and, nobody's necessarily, there were certain axioms, like if you want to direct, you have to behave like this, like that. So women will change a lot, and they will bring new voices, but also I'm sure that they will change some things in approach and production. And also, as Antoneta says, I think it's very important to talk about distribution. And that's when we come to that point of maybe for some other
there is a question about that in our chat. Somebody is asking, don't you think it could be also important to have women influence also who buys the movie products, who shows those products in the audience and so on?
And incentives as well, as everything else is incentive sides. Why not a distribution?
Yeah, we have to first find audience, because just don't get me wrong, but for art house cinema, we should find, maybe women will change that, maybe they will fight more find the audience for our films, and not just that we end up showing our films at the festivals to each other. So yeah, let's bring more women to sales.
No, I have to read because there is another question, and it's Eva asks, and it is important because we started from 50-50, that comes from Sweden, and Eva is asking a very Swedish question. Quotas in financing, distribution, governmental and educational institutions could be implemented right away without putting in quotas on creatives. The results would speak volumes. Look at Anna Serner. She moved the dial in the Swedish cinema. She was the one, presenting this in Cannes in 2016. This is only me, though very slowly, which says how much there is to do. So what do you think? How much there is to do? What is our, what is our next step, and what is your next step? Because we have to wrap it up, and we have exactly 6 minutes more.
That's not enough.
No, I told you it would be better that we are live, and then that we can, that we can kill the CineLink schedule and do it half an hour over schedule and so on. But digital is much more harsher than the real life, so they will just cut us. So what do you think is our next step? Because for me, did things move? Yes, they moved, because putting this panel together 10 years ago would be extremely difficult. To find people that are ready to talk about it, to find people that are ready to talk about the problems in the policies that are, fighting for us, it would be quite difficult. And I think that it would not be as easy conversation 10 years ago. Yeah, we are coming from different backgrounds, different ages, different places in the world, and we really share, the problem. And we have, maybe we're seeing some things differently, which is actually nice. But I think that this is the proof that things can go forward. But I think our biggest fight is not to stop fighting.
I think our biggest fight is to continue making exactly the movies we wanted to make, regardless of quotas. And then to have a volume of those movies, as you said, the Sweden speaks. It's about a volume, and then the volume will speak for itself of the quality. And then the 50-50 is great for its transparency. We need to be transparent. That's what it is. We need to be transparent to know what's submitted, what comes out. It's not about pushing women forward through a way that they have not deserved, as it's now quoted. No, that's not the way. We just need to continue making our films, make more of them, be financed to make more of them, and have a visibility and there have transparency.
For me personally, I think that, yeah, of course, we need to do what we like to do, and we were, and for me as a producer, to support the vision of film directors, women or men, but that have this other sensibility that I think the world needs in a way. And then I also think that the new generation, that was something that I was like trying to speak about on the shooting I had already now a month ago, that sometimes we have to be careful on not hiding on all of these politically correct things, and to try to be ourselves, like this. We get distracted by things we should not. So if the things we need, and we know that that we need to expose and everything, I think we are on the correct way. If we're hiding, under things that we think we are fighting for, but we are hiding, I think that's not the way. I don't care if a man makes a film with a woman that is the main character. Why not? It's completely fine. I mean, but because there are these strange, discussions. Why a man can make a film with a woman as a protagonist, or the other way around? I mean, it's like this kind of for me, like struggles that are not take you nowhere. I think that we should do what we feel that's good, and we are on the way, on that track, I think.
What the women want to do what they want, huh?
Yeah.
Simple, but I think I would say that's a definition of freedom in a way.
Yes,
for
sure. Women and men also, why not? Like also.
But it is.
Together.
We don't care about men for now.
For now we are here, and
we should use, but I think that we should really use this moment. I mean, even though there is a fashion, there is a this and that and so on, but we should use this moment, because this fashion also can change. And I think that we shouldn't let it happen. We should keep pushing and use the momentum, because next day something else will be fancy and sexy to push in cinema. So I think that this is our time. So let's use it.
Let's use it.
Yeah.
And I'm in order to wrap this up, I'm saying that next year in CineLink, I will have you back, but all of you in Sarajevo, and that we will continue this talk. But first for the audiences, and then maybe 5 of us continuing, because it was a real pleasure, and I would really love to see you all at one table.
Thank you, incredible women.
Thank you all for being with us this year, and goodbye from Sarajevo. Ciao.